Okay, we've given it about a minute. This meeting will be recorded or is being recorded, and we will be posting to our YouTube as always and sending it to everybody who registered and everybody who attended as a follow-up. So welcome to our NVAR form changes. I'm Beverly Franklin, and of course, Colleen Sweeney is presenting for us today. This is a webinar format, so if you have questions during our meeting, please put them in the chat. And if we're not able to get to your questions today, then we will be following up with you. So we're going to dive in, and thank you again for joining us.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is such a busy time of year, so we appreciate your time, and we want to make sure that we're giving you good, valuable information. Here's my contact information. Again, I'm Colleen Sweeney. I'm the managing attorney, but for this particular webinar, what you probably are more excited to know is that I'm the chair of the Standard Forms Committee. So if you do have questions about, changes, feel free to reach out in the chat, and I will follow up with you if I don't get to the answers to your questions. So take my contact information down. You feel free to reach out to me with questions, contracts. Here at MBH, we're here to support you. Speaking of supporting you, one of the things I want to talk to you about a little bit right in the beginning is just some resources we have. We're all looking forward as we do our business planning for 2025. We're going to grow our business, and we want to make sure that we're partnering with you to do that. So we have some resources. They're QR codes for all the resources here. There's the buyer road home and resources. There's the seller destination resources, educational events. We have not finalized our educational classes, but for 2025, you'll be seeing it coming out soon. And once a month, at least once a month, we do a presentation, a CE presentation to help you guys get your credits and make sure you're staying up to date. And then finally, we have one of our more new resources, a contract roundup. Make sure that you are, if you haven't, you're getting those emails, a lot of really good, valuable information for you on there. So again, we're here to partner with you. Feel free to use any of these resources or reach out to us and we'll help you. All right, so this is the forms change webinar, but one of the things that we have to talk about is something that, because it happened during Thanksgiving, I think a lot of people didn't realize happened. The Sitzer-Burnett, the final hearing was November 26th, and here's the QR link to the settlement terms. And the great news is on the 26th, the court gave final approval to the settlement. And so that means that that's going to be the law of the land right now. And that's important for everyone to understand. It brings some finality. It brings some time for us all to say, okay, this is what we need to be doing. And luckily, these changes have been in effect since August. And so you guys are already killing it and doing really business under this new model. So some important things to keep in mind with the settlement: it provides the protection for those that comply with the terms. And I've kind of used this graphic throughout talking about the settlement with people because it's just a good reminder, okay? In order to receive the protection of the settlement, you need to follow the mandates, okay? And of course, you have to understand what the mandates are to comply with it. So make sure you understand the terms and implement them in your business. That means go back, read the settlement terms if you haven't. Hopefully you have. And one of the things that's really important to know is NVAR forms are really designed to help you to implement these changes. And now they are, things that we've been doing for a while in your business. So it's an added layer of protection for you. The forms, to the best of everyone's ability, comply with the settlement terms. And so be sure to make sure you're familiar with them and that you're using the forms in that way. So as I always say, stay under that umbrella of the protection with the settlement, comply with the terms. So that's the great news. I will say that my best holiday present for you guys is that there are very few changes, and the changes to the residential sales forms are minor. So we did a lot of changing over the course of the year, a lot of pivoting. People have done an amazing job of making the new normal work, and we're not trying to mix that up. All right, so starting with the actual changes, we're just to let you know that in terms of K1321, the residential sales contract, and K1209, the sales contract for land, these only are going to contain changes for typographical errors. So nothing significant there, okay? You're not going to need to update your active contracts or offers due to these changes. The leasing forms have changed to accommodate the modifications to MLS. We're going to talk through a lot of that today. And all January 2025 versions of the forms were updated administratively to increase lines. That's feedback we're getting in terms of things that would be helpful, and to remove facts from any contact information. So these clerical updates are going to be applied to all the forms moving forward, just so you'll see those changes. All right, to get into the specifics, what we want to do here is, so the forms changes in 1336, which is exclusive right to sell listing agreement, the K 1337 exclusive agency listing agreement, and the 1355 exclusive right to sell unimproved land, okay? These forms were updated to reflect the following changes. It broadens the options for the broker compensation. It removes the variable rate compensation option, and the changes were these changes are all in paragraph 6 in all 3 of the forms. Okay. You do not need to update your active listing agreements due to this change. So what does this actually look like on the forms? I think that this is the best way I can help you focus on the form changes so you know where to expect them. So the old language, and again, I call it old, but it was just from August. That was paragraph 6 in the listing broker compensation. That's the paragraph in all of them. And here what I've done is looked at the new language and highlighted it for you. So it's going to look a little bit different. And you'll just see that it now says and or other. Okay. So you can put in there your broker compensation, but what we see that was removed was this variable rate compensation. So the old broker compensation paragraph 6 had that paragraph C that's no longer in there. If you want to use something like that, you can do that in terms of adding that under other. All right. Again, that variable rate has been removed. So if you're going to use it, you're going to have to write it in there. All right. K 1338, the exclusive right to represent the buyer. This form was updated to broaden the options again for the broker compensation. You're not going to have to update anything. So this is a pretty easy transition. And what we see is that old language, this is paragraph 8. And now we see the new language. It's going to look familiar because we just went over that. So there's just consistency in the forms. And I think this will be an easy transition for everybody. All right. And again, you're not going to need to update anything. So we did see a lot of changes to the leasing forms. And so we'll kind of focus on this. K 1281, the exclusive right to lease. This form was updated again to broaden the options for the broker compensation, remove the variable rate compensation option, clarify that tenant's broker compensation, if any, is optional, authorize the broker to collect the first full month's rent and credit that towards the broker compensation and any compensation to a tenant's broker, and add option for additional listing broker compensation for unrepresented tenant. Okay. You don't need to update these listings. So this one is a little bit more complex in terms of the changes. So let's just go through it and see how it looks. The exclusive right to lease. This is the old language, and this is just from 7/24. And this is, again, we're going to see that variable rate compensation has been removed. And here's the new language. And what I've done is, again, highlight for you where their changes are made. The broker compensation in paragraph A, we've reviewed, so it's consistent. The tenant's broker compensation, you'll see that there's language there that's optional. And again, that the landlord authorizes the broker to collect. Okay, I'm not going to read it all to you, but you'll also see 6C, the additional listing broker compensation for unrepresented tenant is there, an important new language for you all to be familiar with. All right. The exclusive right to represent the tenant agreement, that's 1282, and this form was updated to include a ratification of lease to term end date. It broadens again that options for broker compensation, and this includes some formatting changes that had been requested by agents. And again, you do not have to update any of your forms, this form either, in terms of if you already have something out there on the old forms. So 1282, we look at the old language again. This is just from 724. It was paragraph 4 specifically. We're focusing on right here. And you'll see that we added that or upon ratification language. That's a change. In terms of paragraph 7 of compensation, you'll see that language to be consistent throughout the broker compensation language. So this next one, I wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about, just to focus on the changes for 1399, the release of broker representation agreement. And this form was updated to include options for the parties to agree on whether the brokerage compensation obligations are released, and to keep or renegotiate the early termination fees. So this was something that I think in practice, a lot of people had been concerned about, like sometimes the forms weren't flexible enough to address the situations that were arising. So the goal here was to provide changes to allow more flexibility. And so what does this look like? The old language, this was changed not in July 23. That's paragraph 5, what it used to look like. And here it's a completely different paragraph. So if applicable, the seller, landlord, or buyer tenant will pay an early termination fee as follows. You can check the box as outlined in the brokerage agreement, or you can say an amount which supersedes any amount that may have been outlined in the brokerage agreement. And then there's also some additional language you can read there in terms of the broker should not be liable for damage. So this is something that hopefully will help you all from having to write addendums and address situations that, as my understanding, has come up quite a bit for you all. All right, so K 1353, the appraisal contingency, no financing contingency. This form was updated to remove the following language, which said or void contract. This was removed from both options A and B, as there was no automatic right to void. So it was ambiguous, and it was something that hadn't actually, I hadn't heard of it causing any problems, but certainly in reviewing it, it could. So how does this look? The old language from July of 22, we'll see where it said that or void. And now the new language in the January 25 form, see this appraisal contingency. You have this, you can satisfy this contingency or negotiate the sale price, but you can't void. So that was the change in it, because that other things have to happen in the event. It's not an automatic right to void. All right, in terms of 1354, the lease, paragraph 1 was modified to include a definition of rent from the VRLTA and clarified how it is payable. Paragraph 1 was also modified to include all potential fees in the first paragraph in accordance with the VRLTA. So we see that new paragraph 1 there, and I've highlighted some changes there to help you focus on, just be familiar. You're going to see new language in there, and that's why it is. Again, it's trying to make sure that everything is consistent, no ambiguity. All right, paragraph 2 includes the definition of premises from the VRLTA, and it clarified that it included grounds. And you'll see that paragraph 2, and I've highlighted the language there just so you'll see the changes. Paragraph 6 expands the manner in which rent is payable to the landlord. We're getting to modern times now, and the rent is payable to the landlord in the following manner. You can include whatever you want in there, if it's Zelle, anything else that people can come up with at this point. All right, paragraph 10. It now reduces the number of occupants to 6. Nobody felt like that was needed, that many occupants. And so now you'll see it's just 6 lines instead of, I think it was 10. So just as a practice pointer here, tenants do not include occupants, so they don't need to be included in this section. And so that's just for clarification of how you're going to use that section. Keeping with the lease, paragraph 12 clarified the entire utilities and services paragraph. The goal was to outline the responsibilities so it was a little more transparent and clear to the consumer. So it says what the tenant is responsible for paying, that's tenant paid. versus what is included, landlord paid rent. Okay, so paragraph 12, I think it's much easier and more concise and transparent. It's paragraph A is what the tenant's expected to pay, and paragraph B is what the landlord is providing. So that will be something that hopefully helps people using this lease. All right, the rental application, which is Form K-1008. This form was changed to add an optional provision for the tenant to request contribution for the tenant's brokerage. This is important, and what you're going to see is the applicant requests contribution to tenant's broker compensation in the amount of either a percentage of the first full month's rent or a set amount of money. Just to be clear, this language appears in the offer to rent, which is like a prefatory paragraph, and can be used in conjunction with the new NVAR form, which we're going to talk about as well. But this is important for you guys to understand as an optional way to support you in these forms. All right, K-1308, buyer's acknowledgement of adverse consequences. Okay, the form was modified to include a checkbox for the buyer to acknowledge and understand the potential adverse consequences of waiving their cancellation rights under the Virginia Resale Disclosure Act. This is a great form. I hope people are using it and understand it's a great way to provide protection to you as you're advising clients of how to move forward and making sure they understand what a waiver may be in a lot of situations. This was added right above other. I just highlighted it there so you see that checkbox is available, and it's just the buyer's cancellation rights under the Virginia Resale Disclosure Act. So in the event that your client says, listen, you know what, to win this contract, I'm going to waive my rights potentially, then you're going to be able to check that box and have them sign the form. All right, K-1400, the solar panel addendum to the listing agreement. You know, people are getting more and more savvy. I think more in Maryland, we were seeing solar panels, and now we're seeing more of them in Virginia. So this form is, you know, progressing and evolving. And so the first change we see is a change to the solar panel manufacturer was now going to say installer. And you'll see where that is reflected in paragraph 1. To clarify that if the solar panel is subject to more than one solar loan, the parties must execute separate addenda for each loan. And then this is the ownership status. Again, you see if solar panel is subject to more than one solar loan, they're going to have to execute that additional addenda. This is important that you see this because it also plays into the next form. The K-1401 solar panel contingency addendum to the sales contract was modified again for consistency to the change solar panel manufacturer to installer. And that's where you see it in paragraph 1. It clarified that if the solar panel is subject to more than one solar loan, the parties must execute separate contingencies for each loan. This is in paragraph 2B, and this is what it looks like. And then clarify that if a buyer fails to assume a solar loan, the contract is automatically void unless parties otherwise agree in writing. And this is paragraph 2 big B 2 little b. So solar financing contingency. Important to note here, this is something that was really added, which is going to keep both the buyer and seller protected. Nobody wants to have a loan that they're responsible for on a solar panel on a house that they no longer own, and vice versa, you know, making sure that everybody is covered here. So this was just an update as things progress with solar panels in Virginia, making sure that the best forms are available out there. Okay, so probably this is the biggest change, and it's a new form. It's K-1404, the Tenant Broker Compensation Agreement. This is the whole form, and I'm going to walk through with you and give you some advice on the best way to use it and how it can be used. Again, this new form serves as a mechanism in leasing transactions to formalize any compensation paid by the landlord or listing broker. All right, it's designed to be flexible and for use by either side prior to lease ratification. For example, the tenant agent could present it to the listing agent or the landlord prior to the tenant's submission of a rental application, trying to provide some flexibility here to deal with the new normal, as we'll call it. or the listing agent could present it to the tenant and their agent when they come to tour the property. This form is not an addendum to the lease. It is a separate agreement. That's important to know. Okay, and it's not needed if there's no tenant broker compensation. All right. So I wanted to just kind of focus on, I did remove the, just so it could be a little bigger. There's no signature lines on here, but that's going to be part of this form also. But how are you going to use it? So at the top, you're going to identify the tenant's brokerage. This form only applies when the tenant is represented, so you don't need it otherwise. In paragraph 1, identify who, if anyone, will be paying the tenant broker compensation. It's either the listing brokerage or the landlord. So want to make sure that that's clear. And the chosen payer will be the party to this agreement along with the payee, the tenant's brokerage. So that's important because who's signing is important. And paragraph 2, in clear, ascertainable numbers, everyone's going to know why we use those words. You identify the amount that the party selected in paragraph 1 will be paying to the tenant's brokerage. Okay, so that's a good way to just walk through this and provide a mechanism for some clarity in terms of the compensation that's going to get paid. So on the signature lines, whoever is selected in paragraph 1 signs the agreement. So I'm just going to go back here for a second and show you guys. Oops. It's going to be landlord or listing brokerage. All right. So that's what the whole form looks like. All right. All right. So practice pointers on this one. Do not forget to ensure this form aligns with the terms of your listing agreement. Consistency is really important. And also keep in mind that you all have a code of ethics. I'm not going to read it to you, but there are some things that you have to keep in mind as you are using this form. And that's something that, you all will want to talk about within your brokerage as well. All right, so that's it. That's probably the best present you guys are going to get for Christmas, right? Like there's not too many changes. You guys are already implementing great changes that have been in place that are helping this market thrive and grow. In terms of resources, MBH is here to support you. Feel free to reach out to me with your questions. The NVAR Legal Hotline, the Forms Committee is a resource also. One of the things I would really suggest to you guys is that if you have questions, you do, and I have the QR code there, that you go ahead and reach out and talk to the NVAR Legal Hotline, because the legal hotline is really what fuels the changes. When you guys see situations where you're not sure that the forms are being used exactly as you want them to be, or not as flexible, if you are submitting things and we see and the Forms Committee sees the same issues arise month after month, those are what the Forms Committee is going to focus in on, making those changes accordingly. And of course, NAR has a significant library of resources for you. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that, if you have any questions, you can reach out. There's lots of different support for you. And I congratulate you on staying on top of the education and the form changes. It really helps you grow your business. So good news, I didn't need to take 2 hours for a form changes webinar this time. If you have any questions, there's my information. Feel free to reach out. I love talking about this stuff, so I hopefully you'll come. You can say the good and the bad of the forms as well. So I appreciate everybody attending today, and especially during this really busy time. So have a great holidays, and hopefully we'll see you in the new year.
Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Bye.